Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Charya Ashtotara Shata Shishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Samstapaka Acharya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. So this morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 26, titled The Fundamental Principles of Material Nature, Text 18. Antaḥ puruṣa-rūpeṇa kāla-rūpeṇa yo bahiḥ samanvety eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ bhagavān ātma-māyayā antaḥ puruṣa-rūpeṇa kāla-rūpeṇa yo bahiḥ samanveti eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ bhagavān ātma-māyayā antaḥ puruṣa-rūpeṇa kāla-rūpeṇa yo bahiḥ samanveti eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ bhagavān ātma-māyayā antaḥ puruṣa-rūpeṇa kāla-rūpeṇa yo bahiḥ samanveti eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ bhagavān ātma-māyayā puruṣa-rūpeṇa eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ bhagavān ātma-māyayā antaḥ puruṣa-rūpeṇa kāla-rūpeṇa yo bahiḥ samanveti eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ bhagavān ātma-māyayā. Ladies, antaḥ puruṣa-rūpeṇa kāla-rūpeṇa yo bahiḥ samanveti eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ bhagavān ātma-māyayā antaḥ puruṣa-rūpeṇa kāla-rūpeṇa yo bahiḥ samanveti eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ bhagavān ātma-māyayā antaḥ puruṣa-rūpeṇa kāla-rūpeṇa yo bahiḥ samanveti eṣaḥ sattvānāṁ bhagavān ātma-māyayā. Antaḥ, within, puruṣa-rūpeṇa, in the form of Supersoul, kāla-rūpeṇa, in the form of time, yaha, he who, bahiḥ, without, samanveti, exists, eṣaḥ, he, sattvānāṁ, of all living entities. Bhagavān, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. ātma-māyayā, by his potencies. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation. By exhibiting his potencies, the Supreme Personality of Godhead adjusts all these different elements, keeping himself within as the Supersoul and without as time. Purport. Here it is stated that within the heart, the Supreme Personality of Godhead resides as the Supersoul. This situation is also explained in Bhagavad-gītā. The Supersoul rests beside the individual soul and acts as a witness. This is also confirmed elsewhere in the Vedic literature. Two birds are sitting on the same tree of the body. One is witnessing and the other is eating the fruits of the tree. This Purusha or Paramātmā, who resides within the body of the individual soul, is described in Bhagavad-gītā 13.23 as the upadraṣṭā, witness, and the anumantā, sanctioning authority. The conditioned soul engages in the happiness and distress of the particular body given him by the arrangement of the external energy of the Supreme Lord. But the Supreme Living Being or the Paramātmā is different from the conditioned soul. He is described in Bhagavad-gītā as maheśvara or the Supreme Lord. He is Paramātmā, not jīvātmā. Paramātmā means the Supersoul who is sitting by the side of the conditioned soul just to sanction his activities. The conditioned soul comes to this material world in order to lord it over material nature. Since one cannot do anything without the sanction of the Supreme Lord, he lives with the jīva soul as witness and sanction-giver. He is also bhoktā. He gives maintenance and sustenance to the conditioned soul. Since the living entity is constitutionally part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is very affectionate to the living entities. Unfortunately, when the living entity is bewildered or illusioned by the external energy, he becomes forgetful of his eternal relationship with the Lord. But as soon as he becomes aware of his constitutional position, he is liberated. The minute independence of the conditioned soul is exhibited by his marginal position. If he likes, he can forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead and come into the material existence with a false ego to lord it over material nature. But if he likes, he can turn his face to the service of the Lord. The individual living entity is given that independence. His conditional life is ended and his life becomes successful as soon as he turns his face to the Lord. But by misusing his independence, he enters into material existence. Yet the Lord is so kind that as Supersoul, he always remains with the conditioned soul. The concern of the Lord is neither to enjoy nor to suffer from the material body. He remains with the jīva simply as sanction-giver and witness, so that the living entity can receive the results of his activities, good or bad. Outside the body of the conditioned soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead remains as the time factor. According to the Sankhya system of philosophy, there are 25 elements. The 24 elements already described plus the time factor make 25. According to some learned philosophers, the Supersoul is included to make a total of 26 elements. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to Canto 3, Chapters 26 in the matter of fundamental principles of material nature, text 18. Om ajnanatimirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha Shri Caitanya manobishtam sthapitam yena bhutale swayam rupa kadamahyam dadati swapadantikam vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swaminiti Namine Nama Acharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradaine Gaurakatha Dhamadaya Nagragramatharine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Gopi Paranadana Dase Iti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpattarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Yat Kripatamaham Bande Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Katanchana Smrite Yasmin Dushkaram Sukaram Bhavet Vismrite Viparitam Syat Shri Chaitanyam Namamitam. So, in this verse, Srila Prabhupada explains that the living entity, by misusing his independence, comes to this material world. And what is the result of coming to this material world? One becomes trapped in a body. So, there is nothing glorious about birth in the material world. It is a situation where we have got trapped in this world, trapped in a body. First of all, trapped in the world, then within the world, trapped in a body. So it is a dual trap. So why does it say it is a trap? Because what does the body do? What does the body essentially do? The living entity wants to have a life of Sat, Chit and Ananda. The living entity wants to be eternal. The living entity wants to be knowledgeable, and the living entity wants full of happiness. Yet, the very body by its constitution is the exact opposite of that. So, a living entity which is Sat, Chit and Ananda is usually Sat, Chit, Ananda of Sat, Chit, Ananda nature when it enters a body which is Asat, Achit and Nirananda. Okay, Nirananda. So then it is a very incompatible situation. So whatever we aspire for the material body will deliver an exact opposite result. So therefore, we are stuck in this material body. However, the problem is that we do not realize this. When I say we, I'm just, in any class that I give, and I use we in a very general sense. It doesn't refer to everybody in the room, because some people may be very exalted, some people may be liberated, and so on. So I'm just using we in a didactic sense, that's all. So we are trapped in a body which produces the exact opposite of what we desire. Yet, Krishna's energy, the external energy, is so powerful, it makes us believe that this body is what we were looking for. No? It makes us believe that this body is what we were looking for. And this is called there are two potencies of Maya called avarnatmika potency and prashekatmika potency. So one is the covering potency of the Lord, one is the throwing potency of the Lord. First throwing, then covering. So when we desire to come to this material world, we are thrown into this material world. So that is one of the potencies of the Lord. And the other potency is the covering potency. So what does it cover actually? What does it cover? So covering potency means it makes us unaware of what is the reality. Because we have a certain desire. What is that desire? Srila Prabhupada explains that material consciousness has two psychic divisions. What is that? One is that we want to create, the other is we want to enjoy. Neither of this is the nature of the spiritual soul, spirit soul. When it says enjoy, it doesn't mean enjoy as a servant, enjoy as a master. So creator and enjoyer as the master. This is Prabhupada explained, these are the two psychic divisions of material consciousness. So it is with that desire that we come into this world. And we are trapped in a body which gives us the exact opposite of that. So then what happens is that Maya comes to the help of the jiva. Because if you are conscious of that reality, then how can you create or enjoy? Because you know that, I'll come to that later. So it is not possible to create or enjoy when we are unconscious of that, So therefore, Krishna's material energy covers the reality. So therefore, everybody gets absorbed in this consciousness of I am the creator, I am the enjoyer. Now, this state generally in the schools, as Prabhupada explains, when one is born, from the time that one enters school to the time that one exits school, what do they teach you? How to increase this tendency of being creator and enjoyer. And they try to how to optimize it. This is material education. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada called it a slaughterhouse. It is not without reason that he called it a slaughterhouse. Because they try to teach the children in a very sophisticated manner how to be creators, how to be the masters of enjoying this material world. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada is very precise in his use of terminology. This is a very sophisticated manner of destroying the soul's capability to attain full happiness. So therefore, he calls it slaughterhouse. And Srila Prabhupada is not very, very kind in referring to the situation in this material world. He would often say, this material world, the current civilization, is a sophisticated version of animal life. Because in animal life, there is no possibility of understanding reality. One's consciousness is so covered that one gets dragged by they just get dragged by their instincts. But yet one good thing is that they don't break the laws of nature. But human beings, what happens is that when they are ignorant, they not only behave like animals, but they also break the laws of nature. So, Srila Prabhupada explains that this situation is called a civilization of two-legged animals. Because generally animals are four-legged, right? Sometimes bears walk on two legs. But therefore Srila Prabhupada calls it a civilization of two-legged animals. Now this is not a harsh criticism. The kindness of a sadhu, is that the sadhu brings us in touch with reality. Because if the sadhu doesn't bring us in touch with the reality, he's actually doing harm to us. So the sadhu brings us in touch with reality. Now, the problem could be that how can we live with this state of consciousness, right? We are interacting on a daily basis in this world. And every time we think we are trapped, is that a realistic mode of living? Constantly we are thinking we are trapped. I mean, how does that sound? So then the self-help people will say, look, this is a very negative way of thinking. Prabhupada is saying one has to be pessimistic about the material world. So how do we reconcile this whole thing? Is it practical to live like this? Do we really observe that in our daily state of living, we are thinking we are trapped, this is hopeless situation in the material world? Do we normally think like this? If we are not normally thinking like this, the scriptures explain, Srila Prabhupada explains, something wrong with us. There's something wrong with us. But that does not mean that that is the only state of consciousness that we are supposed to be in. Rather, Srila Prabhupada in the first canto, before he went to America, of course, even after he went to America, all the purports are unbelievable. But the kind of expressions that he used in the first canto, amazing expressions. For example, he says that when one takes to the process of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he says, in the first canto, 5th chapter, he says, there is absolute certainty of converting this hell of pandemonium into the abode of the Lord. So, Prabhupada refers to this material world as a hell of pandemonium. So he says, but when one takes to Krishna consciousness, there is absolute certainty of converting this hell of pandemonium into the abode of the Lord. Now, how does that work? So, it works from the platform of humility. And what is that humility? Humility means that whenever we read anything about spiritual reality, about the material body, about the living entities in the material body, we should first of all think, this purport is written for me. I am that two-legged animal. This should be our state of consciousness when we read this. So, then what happens is, as Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu says, that Trinadapi sunichena taroriva saishnana amanina maradena kirtaniya sada hari. It automatically puts us, of course, the the Bhagavatam, by reading, it's full of messages of Krishna and his devotees that puts us directly in touch with the Supreme Lord and his devotees. But when we take up that mood of humility, that I am that person, I am that two-legged animal, I am this, I am that, Prabhupada has written this purport for me, then one comes to that state of constantly chanting the holy names of the Lord. And this is not, this is the path that has been chalked out by the acharyas. Srila Prabhupada explains that our process is mahajana yena gatas sapantaha. So what have the mahajanas taught us? Every day in front of Panchatattva, we sing Narottam Das Thakur's song. Mosama patita na paibe ar. So Narottam Das Thakur is praying to Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, you cannot find someone more fallen than me. This is Narottam Das Thakur, one of the greatest acharyas in our line. He was so exalted that Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he appeared after Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. But before he even appeared, Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, once during Kirtan, he cried out so loudly, Narottam, Narottam. So Lord Caitanya was so fond of Narottam Das Thakur that he deposited love of Godhead for him in the Padma river. So this is the exalted personality that we are referring to. And what was their mood? The mood was Mosama patita na paibe ar. You cannot find someone more fallen than me. Let's take Haridas Thakur, Rupa Goswami. They did not enter Lord Jagannath's temple in Jagannath Puri because they considered themselves to be fallen. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he writes a song. I mean, he wrote many songs. But what is the mood that he brings about in his songs? I am the most fallen. I am the most fallen. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, what does he say? He says, I am lower than the worm and stool. And anybody who looks at me, who loses the results of their pious activities. So this is the Goswamis. So if we want to experience this world as the abode of the Lord, this is a prerequisite. This is a prerequisite. There is no other way. Without understanding that we are most fallen, there is no question of experiencing this world as the abode of the Lord. So that's a prerequisite. If we think that, okay, all this applies to the karmis, definitely it applies to the modern society. There's no doubt in that. But it equally applies to me. Just because I have taken to the process of Krishna consciousness doesn't mean that I have now become free from being a two-legged animal. No. Taking to Krishna consciousness is just the beginning. Have we become free from that consciousness? We can examine ourselves. We can examine ourselves that how much we value this material body for sense gratification. How much we value, I'm a brilliant thinker, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this. How much we are attached to these upadhis. And they don't go away instantly. They go away only when one attains love of Godhead. And even people who have attained love of Godhead, who are already, who are residents of the spiritual world, when they come down to this world, even they think that there is nobody more fallen than them. So what to speak of a practicing sadhaka? So why did I bring up this point? Because this particular verse in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains about the Supersoul playing the role of anumantā and upadraṣṭā. Upadraṣṭā means witness. Anumantā means the sanctioning authority. So that is the only role that the Lord plays when one is absorbed in material consciousness. But when one wants to turn towards the Lord, then the Supreme Lord begins to instruct. How does he begin to instruct? Through the spiritual master and the sadhus. So they are the external manifestations of the super soul, the same super soul that we are reading in this verse. So the super soul can perform a different function other than just witnessing and sanctioning. The super soul can play an active role in our lives. He can play a very active role in our lives. And by the association, the sangha of the sadhus. So the sangha of the sadhus is the external manifestation of the Paramātmā. Of course, it says spiritual master, the external manifestation. But when it says spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur makes it a point that he says that every object, whether animate or inanimate, is a manifestation of the mercy of my Guru Deva. He makes that point very strongly, which means that not just the spiritual master who instructs us or initiates us, but this assembly of sadhus especially is meant to instruct us on the path back to Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada, when of course I already spoke about how we should think that we are that when we read the Bhaktivedanta purports. We are those two-legged animals. We are that. We are that. We're supposed to think like that. But apart from that, it is also important for us to understand humility, Prabhupada explained, is intelligence. Intelligence, you know. So, intelligence means to see things as they are. What is right, what is wrong. So, when we look at the world, we are supposed to look at it as a society of two-legged animals, nothing other than that. And among those two-legged animals, I am the most fallen. That's it. It is not that I am a two-legged animal, everybody else in this world are all great souls. No, the devotees are the great souls, that's for sure. But otherwise, the material civilization is a society of two-legged animals. I am the most fallen. If I continue to associate with the two-legged animals, then I will become even more fallen. So my only refuge is the shelter of the Bhagavatas. This is my only refuge. So shelter of the Bhagavatas could refer to two kinds of shelter. One is the book Bhagavata, which is Krishna himself, and the person Bhagavata, which is his devotees. So when one takes refuge of the book Bhagavata and the person Bhagavata, then one is fully rightly situated. So then there is absolute certainty that this hell of pandemonium can be turned into an abode of the Lord. And if you look at the way Srila Prabhupada dealt with things in this world, you know, he was a samadarshi. He would see things exactly as they are. He was not affected by any form of material consciousness. So you would see that when dealing with a big politician, dealing with a big scholar, dealing with a big scientist, or dealing with a common man, you know, of course, you may have to treat them differently, you know. Treat them differently in the sense, okay, if a big politician comes, you may have to treat them in a certain way, for a scientist or whatever. Prabhupada was expert at that. But while speaking to them, we can notice, without exception, Prabhupada makes the point, there is no use of being a scientist, a philosopher, a politician, or this or that, if you do not know that you are not the body, you are an animal consciousness. Prabhupada made no exception to that. He did not say that one grade of person is better than the other. Anybody who accepts the body of this as the self is in ignorance, is in complete ignorance. You know? And so Prabhupada did not give a modicum of credibility to anyone who is in animal consciousness. He would say, okay, you have done so many things here. Let's utilize it in the service of the Lord. But that it has been done, therefore we can use it. But Prabhupada does not consider this creating different things. He says factory is such a unnecessary thing. Everything is already provided for us in the arrangement of the Lord. That is the Ishopanishads teachings. We don't need to create anything. That consciousness of I need to be the creator is material consciousness. Nature provides everything for a peaceful living. So, Prabhupada was very insistent, very consistent rather, in showing us that apart from Krishna consciousness, you don't need to manufacture so many things to be happy. You don't need industries, you don't need cars, you don't need anything. You just don't need all these things. Then why did Prabhupada use it? It's already there. So how shall I use it in Krishna's service? That's all. It is not that Prabhupada encouraged these activities. Okay, let us create more and more factories, let us do this, no. Prabhupada was not in favor of anything that disrupts the energy that human energy which can be used for attaining love of God. So, so the point being that this entrapment in the material body is a reality. So is Krishna consciousness. Okay. And by being in that state, oh Lord, I am a two-legged animal entrapped in this body. One can, in that state of humility, let me be more tolerant than a tree. Who am I? Let me be more humble than a blade of grass. Who am I? So then one can chant the holy names of the Lord incessantly. So this is the teaching of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, which our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas have so brilliantly presented. It's like generally you find so many spiritual teachers and all these so-called yogis, so they discriminate in their dealings with different kinds of people. But Srila Prabhupada, absolutely no distinction. You may be a great scientist, you may be anybody whatsoever, but if you do not understand that your life is meant to serve Krishna, then everything that you're doing is completely useless. I just found one particular phrase that I was reading yesterday in the Bhagavatam. This is Vidura talking to Dhritarashtra, and Srila Prabhupada explains in the Purport. It is a fact that the material world is a great illusion because everything appears to be a tangible reality, but at the next moment evaporates like the dashing foam of the sea or a cloud in the sky. Okay, this is what it is. It appears like a tangible reality, but it just vanishes. And even that tangible reality is actually covered, right? It's not that you're actually seeing the reality. You're seeing a very attractive version of reality. That attractive version is only a covering. As Rukmini says, I'll end with that. A man within this material world is just a dead body. That's what it is. A material body means it's a dead body. In fact, superficially, the living entity is covered by this body, which is nothing but a bag of skin. So you have different kinds of bags. You have plastic bags. You have paper bags. You have all kinds of jute bags, cotton bags. You have all kinds of bags. So this is a different kind of a bag. It's called a skin bag. So which is nothing but a bag of skin decorated with a beard and mustache, hairs on the body, nails on the fingers, and hairs on the head. Within this decorated bag are bunches of muscles, bundles of bones, and pools of blood, always mixed with stool, urine, mucus, bile, and polluted air, and enjoyed by different kinds of insects and germs. So this is our material body, which we consider to be so valuable. In fact, this of course refers to the male body. The female body is also the same, just that they don't have mustache and beard or whatever. But in general, this gives us an idea of what this body is. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur reminds us every day when we chant the Mahaprasada prayers. What do we say? Sharira avidya jal, jadendriya tahe kal. So, Sharira avidya, this body is a lump of ignorance. Senses are like, and the senses of this body are like a network of paths leading to death. So this is something which we are reading every day. I mean, but when we chant every day, but do we think at least three times a day, those of us who eat 3 times, who honor prasadam 3 times, we chant 3 times. Are we conscious of what we are chanting? So this is material reality. But it is presented in such a way, packaged in such a way, it appears, wow. But as Prabhupada says, it's a great illusion because everything appears to be a tangible reality, but at the next moment evaporates like the dashing foam of the sea or a cloud in the sky. So to teach this illusion and to increase that illusion is not the business of the educational system. Rather, it is to cut down that. So real education means Krishna consciousness. Okay, I'll stop there. Any thoughts, reflections or questions? Yes, sir.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much for your wonderful class. When you are explaining about the witnessing and the sanctioning authority, the upadraṣṭā and the anumantā, you were explaining that the spiritual master also the external manifestation.
Yes.
But we also understand there's a Chaitya Guru in our
Heart. Yes.
So how is that related?
So Chaitya Guru, we can get direct dictations from Chaitya Guru when one is very advanced. In the material state of consciousness, we cannot get direct instructions from the Chaitya Guru. Sometimes people think conscience, they say conscience. My conscience is saying this. My conscience is saying this. Conscience is not the Paramātmā. Conscience is the voice of conditioning. You could say sometimes it could be Paramātmā, but we can't differentiate what is Paramātmā, what is our state of conditioning. For example, let's take for example that a child who has grown up in a family of vegetarians. When he grows big and his friends induce him to eat meat, so he may say, my conscience doesn't permit me to eat meat. Why? Because the child has been trained in a certain way, right? But on the other hand, a child who has not been trained like that, a child who has been trained to eat meat from the beginning, when they grow up, well, it's just a part of life. What is the big deal? In fact, that's how they will try to induce the others to eat meat, right? What is the big deal? Oh, you have been told some false information. So when we say conscience, my conscience doesn't permit. It could refer to, generally it refers to a state of conditioning based on past lives and things like that. But sometimes it could be the voice of Paramātmā. How do you distinguish? You can't. So we may end up doing things according to what our past conditioning is dictating to us rather than what the Paramātmā is telling us. So therefore, the spiritual master, the Lord appears externally as the spiritual master and the sadhus. But when one becomes perfect, then one receives dictation from the Supersoul in the heart. Just like when Srila Prabhupada is asked, how do you conduct the Krishna consciousness movement? This is a press reporter. It's there in the Veda base. You can look it up. So, and Prabhupada says, Krishna tells us. So then there is some Prabhupada disciple in the with Prabhupada, and he tries to clarify to the reporter. Then Krishna says Buddhi Yoga. Different. I don't know, something he says in terms of Krishna gives intelligence and all these things. And Prabhupada cuts him off and says, no, Krishna tells us directly. So and Prabhupada calls it the spiritual television. He uses that expression called spiritual television. So somebody has attained love of Godhead. The pastimes of the Lord are constantly televised in their hearts. So they're in direct touch. So for them, the Supersoul directly tells them, you can do this next or do that next, but not for us. But he can tell that to us also. Lord is ultimately independent and free. There is no restriction on him. He can talk to whoever he wants, whenever he wants. But generally we should be careful. That is not what happens. At least we need to confirm with the sadhu if we think something is the dictation of the Paramātmā. Yes, Manjri.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the class. Prabhu, you mentioned that when in material consciousness, then Paramātmā acts like a witness and as a sanctioner.
Yeah.
So how if we are practicing Krishna consciousness, I mean, we are in this world, so we are not completely in Krishna consciousness all the time. So how can we see the role of Paramātmā in that way then? Because Paramātmā is mentioned in the purport as the Lord is so kind, he will always stay with the jīvātmā.
So when one becomes a devotee, even though one may not be perfect, the Lord directly intervenes in our life. He is no more a witness and sanctioning authority. He is like your best friend. You're walking the path together. So when you're trying to do something wrong, the Lord will tell you, please don't do this. This is not good for you. So he plays a more active role to the extent that we want him to play that role. I mean, if you want a Lord, no, I don't want to think of Paramātmā now. There's a big botheration. Let me just enjoy now. So then the Lord says, okay. But even then, the Lord is independent. If he feels that this person is foolish, I should do something. So ultimately the Lord is so supremely independent. He may either sanction or he may do something else to obstruct it. How he functions is difficult to understand, but he is actively involved. That Prabhupada makes it very clear, that the moment one takes to the surrendering process, the Lord takes direct charge. He says that very clearly in the teachings of Lord Caitanya. You can read the beginning. He makes it very clear. The Lord takes direct charge. Within that, how exactly he acts depends. Sometimes he may sanction, sometimes he may do something else. It's difficult to say. Yes, Vijay. Prabhuji was this.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu, as you said at the end, it's difficult to say, but I want to know when, suppose we are continuing the Krishna conscious process, and during that, if a devotee is doing some activity which is sometime very heinous, sometime not good, and that time what we can say, God is sanctioning those activities, or so sometime devotee wants some position, and after that definitely their spiritual life becomes very entangled and getting disturbed, totally distracted after getting position and the fame and many material gain. After that it is becoming very distracted totally. So if God is sanctioning those things, then it is what kind of sanction, or I just want to understand in this situation.
Srila Prabhupada tells a very humorous story. He says that when a thief is stealing, he's thinking, oh Lord, I need to steal this. Okay? He's not thinking, oh Lord, he's just thinking, I need to steal this. But the people in the house are thinking, we have to prevent the thief from stealing. So the people in the house have one kind of desire, and the thief has another kind of desire. They're opposites. Now Krishna has to resolve it. And Prabhupada laughs, saying this is the position of Krishna. So regarding the devotees, Srila Prabhupada, when he speaking to His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj, he told him, I have given you the kingdom of God. Now develop it and enjoy it. That's Mayapur. But he also told him, he mentions this, that he also told him that however, if you use it for material enjoyment, that is the result that you will get. Which means that You will not get prema, but you will get material enjoyment. So, if one desires material enjoyment, Krishna may sanction it, may not sanction it, depending on one thing, which is that the sincerity of the devotee. That is the most important factor. So, somebody may be sincere, but unable to overcome a material desire. They are not able to overcome material desire. They are sincere people, genuinely want Krishna consciousness. They don't want to get entangled in it. They genuinely, seriously trying. But they have a material desire. So either Krishna may do something to fulfill that desire in some way, or he may take away the desire also. But the central factor that is very important is a sincerity. That's why Prabhupada always says that, in fact, he writes in the beginning of Nectar of Instruction, in the preface, he makes it very clear. Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the practitioner, attitude of the follower. So, when we say to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on that in that matter, it is not that we are already free from all material desires, but to maintain it, that is not permissible. So one should understand that material desires are not good. One should be sincere enough to know that this is not good for me, but I am not able to overcome this. What do? So I take shelter of the Lord. So the Lord may either desire to fulfill it in some manner, or he may by his mercy just take it away. Prabhupada so many times quoted yasyaham anugrahami. That if I am especially merciful, I take away everything so that they become exclusively dependent on me. And I don't quote that verse very often because I had a good friend. We are friends for the last 45 years now. And his greatest fear is that verse. If I take to Krishna consciousness, Krishna will take away everything. He doesn't do that for everybody. That is only for somebody who's got that eligibility to fully depend on the Lord. So the Lord, the Lord is the ultimate, the master of customization, in the sense that he knows how to handle each person differently. Srila Prabhupada also, that is his outstanding contribution, in the sense that if you see the way he interacted with different disciples, the way he instructed different disciples, although the general principle was there, he customized Krishna consciousness for every individual situation. So Krishna is the master of that. So he will customize it according to each individual circumstance. But the bottom line is the sincerity. Okay, so we're 9 o'clock. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande.